This is the Clinical Leadership Podcast with your host, Dr. Alex Earl. Since the dawn of time, or shortly thereafter, businesses have kept track of their earnings and expenditures using essentially the same method: sales minus expenses equal profit. If you manage the numbers, like most entrepreneurs, you start with sales and then subtract costs directly related to the delivery of your offering, whether a product or a service. Then you subtract all the other costs you incur to run your business: rent, utilities, employee salaries, office supplies, and other administrative expenses, sales commissions, taking your clients out to lunch, signage, insurance, etc., etc. Then you pay taxes. Then, and only then, do you take your owner's distribution, owner salary, profit distribution, etc. Let's be honest, entrepreneurs hardly ever take anything close to a real salary. And good luck telling the government that you decided to skip taxes this year so you could pay yourself. Finally, after all that, you post your company's profit. And if your experience is like the majority of entrepreneurs, you never get to finally. When you're waiting for the leftovers, at best, you'll get is scraps. The traditional accounting methods we use today became formalized in the early 1900s. The particulars are updated regularly, but the core system remains the same. Start with sales. Subtract direct costs, the costs you directly incur to create and deliver your product or service. Pay employees. Subtract indirect costs, pay taxes, pay owners, owner distributions. Retain or distribute profit. Whether you outsource your bookkeeping or keep a shoebox of receipts under your bed, the basic idea stays the same. And that is an excerpt from a book called Profit First by author Mike Michalowicz. And we are pleased today to be joined on the podcast by Mike as we unravel the business side of running our small businesses as practitioners. So a little bit about Mike. We had a nice call just a little bit ago where we dig into a little bit of the deeper intricacies of running a business, the mentalities around money, and the different problems that we come up with and arise as business owners. And so here's a little bit about Mike. Mike is the creator and author of a book called Profit First, which I just showed you an excerpt from. Mike is the author of another book called Clockwork and Fix This Next, which we discussed on the episode. Hundreds of thousands of small business owners in the US and actually all around the world use his system for Profit First. He is a Wall Street Journal bestseller. His books include The Pumpkin Plan, Surge, and The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, along with his latest book, Get Different, which teaches entrepreneurs how to create marketing that can't be ignored. Today, Mike leads two multi-million-dollar ventures as he tests his latest business research for his books. He is a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and a business makeover specialist on MSNBC. Mike is a popular main stage keynote speaker on innovative entrepreneurial topics and is the author of the books that I mentioned already: Get Different, Fix This Next, Clockwork, Profit First, Surge, The Pumpkin Plan, and The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. Simon Sinek had this to say about Mike Michalowicz recently: he is the top contender for the patron saint of entrepreneurs. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Mike Michalowicz. So thank you so much for jumping on a call here. I can't thank you enough for the impact that you've had on me, my business, and my family. I know I've emailed you a couple of times to just say, you know, it gets emotional sometimes running this business. And I was blown away. The first time I sent you an email and you responded, I was blown away. Like, who is this guy? He must not be that good. Like, he's responding to emails, you know?
Yeah.
And then I picked up, you know, your other book, like Clockwork. And I'm like, oh gosh, he's just doing the system, you know, he's putting the system that he, you know, modified, created, and he's putting it into action. And that's all it was. And I was like, dang, I like that. So my respect for you at first went down. So like, why is he responding to emails?
Does he really have time for this? Yeah, that's actually that's interesting. Yeah.
And then it went up because I was like, oh, I get it. Like, fool, you know, I felt like a fool later on where I was like, oh, this is totally a joke on me for sure. So, but anyways, I just appreciated the people that you have on your team. I appreciate the way that they're responsive professional, and like clearly effective at what they do. And that's something that me, as a business owner of two businesses, I'm aspiring to. So the fact that we're here on a call today is truly like, I am honored to be on a call with you
I
today.
appreciate that. I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
it. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah. One phrase that I like to tell a lot of people, I do cite my source when I say this, that your goal and your mission is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. Where did you come up with that sentence?
It's funny. It came over years. I've always been in the last 20 years, I've been asking myself, like, why am I on this planet? Why am I on this planet? And always had a passion for entrepreneurship. But I saw in my own story, and then I started seeing it everywhere, is, we start our business usually for two primary reasons. One is for financial freedom, to not worry about bills, and also personal freedom to do what we want when we want. And most entrepreneurs don't achieve either. So I'm like, what's wrong with us? Like, this is the reason we started, Alex. Like, what's wrong? I'm like, oh my gosh, we are actually putting on this air of success, many of us, when we're really actually impoverished, and we don't even talk about it. And there's other forms of poverty. There's passion poverty. We do things because we are beholden to it, not because we like it. And I'm like, I got to fix this. I got to fix it for myself. Here's a hidden secret. When a guy writes a book, when anyone writes a book or does anything, whatever they're teaching, usually they need for themselves. And so it's a mission to resolve my own experiences with entrepreneurial poverty, and my intention to serve. It's a pretty big community, but there's about 300 million of us globally. I hope to serve as many of those folks as possible.
Well, I can't tell you how much I personally resonate with that narrative, where you could be making a good amount of money, but yet like show very little for it, and ultimately, I'm very, and my wife reminds me of this all the time, that like, at what point does running a business, does it run you, and to the
Yeah.
point where it runs you away from your family? And for me, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a good point. I don't want that, so I'm going to draw the line here. And I just had to make those, value-based decisions about where I would draw the line for the businesses. But one thing I want to tell you, and specifically, I was brought into your world through another person who we just recorded a podcast with, Paul Goff, and he's a physiotherapist. And I heard
Cool.
heard you talk with him, and so I bought your book. I got Profit First. It was very different from anything I had read about business or I was taught in chiropractic school. And at first, I thought, this seems like a lot of work. And then you broke it down by the end of the book into tangible, practical things.
Yeah.
So I've been using it ever since. And then the big key here is, my dad is my, CPA, accountant, financial advisor, so to speak. And you have some opinions in the book about general
Your
accounting
father's like, this
principles.
guy's a tool.
Well, hold on. Well, so I had some like tension, like, do I share this book
Yeah,
with my
yeah,
dad?
yeah.
And I was like, so I handed him the book and I go, you're either going to really love this book or you're going to think this guy does not know what he's talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
And my dad was like, well, that's interesting. Why do you say that? And I said, because he's critical of general accounting principles. And
Yeah.
he was like, oh, I already love it. So am I. And I was like, oh, okay, good. This is interesting. So I gave him the book on like a Wednesday. And when I saw him for a family dinner on a Sunday, he had finished the book and he goes, that guy is awesome. And I was like, there we go. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah. So, and he, like I said, he helps me with the books and he looks at it and he goes, what are we at percentage wise, profit wise right now? Because this is our goal. This is what we're getting after. So you want a fan of someone who is an accountant in the accounting field. So I just want to give you kudos on that front.
Well, thank you. That's a big deal. And it's happening. I think there's more progressive accountants who realize accounting has its purpose. It is for compliance, meaning like the government, you have to report your numbers so they can take their big chunky change. And so we have to follow certain rules to comply. It has value too in analytics, historical analytics. How have we done? But what it doesn't do is it doesn't work with our behavior. And the vast majority of small business owners do not rely on the income statement and balance sheet and cash flow statement to determine the health of their organization. We log into our bank account, see how much money we have. And if I got money, I spend it. If I don't, panic. And if that's our behavior, is to go there, we need something that intercepts that path. It is very hard to change ourselves. It is much easier to channel ourselves, meaning if we do something, how can we continue to do that, but get the results we want? So that's why I love that your father supported it, because some progressive accountants realize that, and bookkeepers too are saying, oh my gosh, yeah, this complements. It's like an umbrella over accounting. It doesn't replace it.
Brilliant. Well, it's definitely something that we picked up on right away in Profit First. Speaking of profit first, one question I want you to just expand on is the concept of the survival trap. As small business owners, that is something that I went through and have to talk about human behavior. I have to catch myself not wanting to drift back into those patterns. So
So
could you
easy.
share a little bit about how we as private practice owners, so that's a majority of the people that listen to our podcast, are chiropractors, physical therapists, massage therapists, or
Yeah.
sports performance professionals that run a private practice or studio. How can we overcome this survival trap?
Yeah. And this is something, it's such an important concept, at least to me. I've revisited it now in multiple books. The idea of the survival trap, just to set the framework, is we're at point A, wherever we are today in our business, and our business will be served by going to point B. But what we do is we are very reactionary when we're at point A. There's crisis. Actually, anyone listening right now could hop in their email, and there's probably like 60 emails waiting for them, demanding their attention, colleagues and employees and clients that all need to be served. And so what we do is we react to the moment, and we do something to resolve the pain or the crisis of the moment in the business to get through the end of the day. If we need sales, let's run a discount or some kind of, everyone's doing Facebook ads. We got to run Facebook ads, and we do that. And then the next day we have an employee or a colleague that's not satisfied with their work. We got to redo our HR. And so what we do is we react to the moment without consideration of what will move the business forward. We start moving often in a very circuitous pattern. The illustration I use is someone lost in the woods. Sadly, you hear these stories often. Hiker gets lost in the woods. What happens? They start moving in circles because they're just reacting to the moment. They're like, I think this is the way out. I think this is the way out. And many of them, ironically, are found just a few miles from civilization, but they perish in the woods because they're moving in circles. So what we have to do is have a clear vision of where the business needs to be, but also what will be of service to the business, not of service to the moment, but to distinguish the moment from the business objectives. So what will be of service to the business and move deliberately in that direction. It's what moves us, out of the forest.
I can't tell you how much I relate to that because it comes down to urgency and importance. And I find
Yeah.
myself doing things that are not important but extremely urgent. And I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't need to
And,
be doing this.
and I'll even add that I would, yeah, you're right. It is a difference between urgent and important. I'll even say that most things that we label as urgent aren't urgent in the first place. We give it urgency, the business owner. So you go into those 60 emails, like, oh, I got to do this. It's been waiting for so long. This has to be done now. Probably half those things, if they never get done, there's no consequence whatsoever. So we could just abandon them. But my nature is I go through an email, I see the next one. I'm like, this is the one that needs to get done today. And I give it urgency. So let's define what's the impactful thing. What will move your business forward? And then only do things congruent with that. A lot of those other things truly can just be simply abandoned, and there is no negative consequence.
It's so true. It's like Gary Keller's book that's talking about the one thing. Like, what's a one thing that can move your business in the right direction? It sounds like you're living that out through your business. So, if you don't mind me asking, how is business going for you today?
Oh, well, I'm living to some degree my vision, but the vision keeps growing. I think one of the keys is by having a massive purpose, and I feel it really does. It's genuine. It resonates with me to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. The scope of it is so big. I don't think I'll ever get there. I'm not even scratching the surface. So I got to serve 300 million entrepreneurs. There's only 700,000 now. We expect 700,000 people this year have implemented Profit First. We surpassed 500,000 at the beginning of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, which is wonderful, but that's not even like a drip in the bucket when you look at 300 million. And so I am living the life I like to live, my dream life, honestly. But the impact isn't nearly where it needs to be, which is very inspirational, right? To have the comfort of doing what gives you joy, to have financial security and stability. Listen, I've been totally broke and I've been wealthy, and there is a lot more happiness in wealthy. I don't know. People are like, oh, money doesn't make you happy. Like, really? Bullshit. Money isn't the source of happiness, but it empowers you to lean into your purpose without distraction. Most entrepreneurs, and I for so long, lived in this day-to-day survival. If I didn't have money coming in today, I couldn't put food on the table. It was constant panic. The stress is unbelievable. But when you bring that financial stability, it allows you to lean into your purpose because you don't have that worry. That's why, some people hear Profit First, Alex, and they're like, oh God, this guy sounds like the greediest of greeds. Like, profit first. I think it's people first. Well, here's the reality. The reason I say profit first is A, it's the formula. You have to take your profit before your expenses. But the reason we need profit first is that it brings stability to an organization and brings runway. I believe we need to get in order to give. There's that saying, you have to give to get. And I call bullshit. We actually need to get in order to be capable to give. And therefore, I think that's what we need to lean into. I've been so blessed that I am not playing at the level I intend to, but every day I am amplifying that and pushing forward to have the impact I intend to have.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because in your books, you're very open and honest and transparent about exactly what you just said. The moments where you had a fantastically wealthy business and sold it,
Oh yeah, and then ruin
and then
myself.
and then you're like you said, in Profit First, you're talking about your daughter offering up a piggy bank, and that hits you on so many different levels when you have no way to make ends meet, unsure where possibly your next meal is going to come from. And you're right, like poverty is, there are many different layers and different levels of poverty, but that, as a business owner, and that I've not experienced that myself, I have a fear of that. But for you to openly share it in a book is really commendable. But for our private practice owners listening, where would you recommend they start with your content? You got a lot of stuff out there, a lot of podcasts,
Yeah.
books. So where would you give us some advice on where to start with your material?
Don't start with everything at once because you'll get overwhelmed. And what I used to say, and I was wrong, I was hyped up on one of my books. Like I wrote Clockwork for Efficiency. I'm like, that's the book you got to read. Like that will fix everything. And then I realized, oh, the one thing you should read or consume is the one thing that will solve your biggest problem. So first, identify what's the biggest challenge in your business. Do you have an HR problem? Is that really your biggest issue? If so, read HR books. And I haven't written one yet. Read that. If you have a profitability problem, read a book on profit. Or if you have a sales problem. But here's the other thing. I also believe that the biggest challenge practitioners have is knowing what their biggest challenge is. We think it's everything. I got millions of challenges. But by definition of the word biggest, only one challenge can be the most important at any given time. So that's actually why I wrote over my shoulder there, fix this next. It's a tool to find what your business needs from you. So I'm telling entrepreneurs too, if you don't know what your biggest challenge really is, read Fix This Next to find what it is.
Perfect. Well, I've got a lot of follow-up questions in regard to that, because I'm sure I'm not alone in this journey of, if I can say, like this game of business, this game of life,
Yeah, it's
this
like a
game of
game.
business. Yeah. And I enjoy it. I thrive on making some decisions and then realizing, okay, that maybe didn't turn out how I wanted it to, but I learned something, And so going through your content, I've learned something about myself that I know I'm not alone as a practitioner. And that is, I think differently about money after reading your books. I think differently about how I manage and lead people based on Clockwork. I think differently about roles and responsibilities because of Clockwork. And now my next step with you is going to be, okay, now I need to identify what is my biggest, like you said, a keyword there, is my biggest problem that I need to fix, resolve within the business. So fix this next. If I'm being honest, that's the next step on my journey with you.
Oh, I love it.
But it's been a process. When I first started Profit First, it was about 18 months ago. And I'm still every month I gotta check in with myself and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, where I'm at in the stage is fix this next.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think, however anyone's journey of learning presents itself, that's the right journey. Just keep thirsting to learn. And so what I'm trying to do with my books is when someone reads them, that it solves, maybe profit actually wasn't your biggest problem at the time, but maybe it moved you forward in a substantial way that you're like, wow, this served me. And now hopefully you thirst more learning, and maybe with my books, maybe with other authors' books, or maybe in other ways through educational courses and so forth. But my hope too is I realize people aren't going to start in the right spot. I sure as heck didn't. But when we do turn it into, it's fun that you call it a game. When we kind of gamify it and we realize this is a strategy, this is maybe the ultimate game, is entrepreneurship. And then it becomes a constant thirst to learn and improve. I think that's a great victory. So thank you. And I love that you're reading Fix This Next. It's awesome. I hope it serves you.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm a lifelong learner such as yourself, but I'm willing to admit when I make a mistake. I've made hundreds of them in the past. I'll make them in the future, no doubt.
Yeah, me too.
But it's it's helpful to know that I'm not alone, so I'm sure you
Yeah.
get bombarded with emails, and I'm sure your team fields just these incredible stories. So how do you keep up with all, because you're very open in your books. You say like,
Yeah.
here's an assignment, email me, Mike at
Yeah.
Michalowicz.com.
I probably get, I was looking, my email's not open. I thought it was, I get roughly 5 emails an hour, 6 emails an hour. So they're coming in every few minutes, like bling, bling, bling. And every morning there's a list to go through. So in the beginning, when I started doing this, I was getting, one every couple of hours. I could still manage that. I would dedicate a half hour. The reason I like to read and consume that stuff is it resonates with me. It's my love language. I love the value, the appreciation I get when I see, those words and hear stories. But now we had to move to a systemization. So there is a part-time administrator who's managing those emails. At the end of the day, she'll come to me and she's like, here's a list of what you got. Here's the stuff that I want you to be aware of. Most people just say, I'm doing what you said, but some people share stories. Actually, literally yesterday, a female entrepreneur, she's more of a freelancer, violinist. She said, I implemented profit first. And she goes, the music industry, live performance collapsed because of COVID. She's like, this has been a game changer. She was like, I took a profit distribution last quarter and I'm taking one again. And we're doing this in March. She's taking one at the end of March. She's like, this has changed my life. And so it just fuels me. And I'll read that email like 2 or 3 times over, which I did, just to get fueled. So that's how we're handling. So we do have a person filtering, but I get the summary report and I get the full chunky stories.
Brilliant. Well, as someone who has emailed you and you got back to me in a surprisingly short amount of time, it fueled the impact that you're having. Because if I send someone an email as someone credible and authority like yourself, and you respond, that
kind of weird at first, right?
Kind of weird at first. And I'm not going to spoil anything for people that do email you. I'm going to let them experience it themselves. But, I opened up my email and this is a response like, oh, this is just a generic, and I was like, no, this is personalized, customized. So does that take a lot of your time? I mean, as the volume kicks up, or do you?
Yeah. So
in place,
it's a worthy investment time. So I do video responses to some emails, not all of them. We're at the volume where I can't keep pace to do them, but there's certain ones that it's clear that they got to hear from me directly, and so my system will prioritize those. Other ones we just say, you know what, we got to respond to some people today. And other days I got a little gap. I'm like, I'm going to hit out 50 videos. It blows people away. But I think the job of an author is to connect with the people who are consuming. Like, you just took the risk of not just buying a book, but actually implementing it and following the steps like that. That's kind of risky. And of the millions and millions of books out there, you selected the one that I wrote. Like, that's a huge acknowledgement to me. And therefore I feel obligated to acknowledge in kind. And honestly, it's a differentiator. I don't think many other authors, actually, I don't know of any other authors that do that. And so that gives me a competitive advantage if you want to look at it from the business perspective.
Right. Well, it was an unknown bonus that came with the book.
Yeah,
I mean, you have these certain homework assignments, which is great because I work really well on a deadline. Ask anyone.
That's awesome.
If you just ask me to do anything with no deadline, I'll just give you a smile and a thumbs up.
Right.
Well, then, when I'm 86, you'll get this, spreadsheet or this cash flow forecast. But if you say I need this by next Tuesday at noon,
yeah,
something strange happens.
Like,
it's done. I get it done.
I love it.
And in your book, when you put a deadline on things, like right now, I want you to go to email Mike at Mike Michalowicz.
Yeah.
And I pulled over in the car. I pulled up my email and sent you an email and just gave you a quick update on things. Like that was me trusting in the process, and also seeing, for lack of better words, the dividends of putting the system into place. And so, when the IRS came knocking and going through certain things, I didn't even panic.
Yeah. Isn't that a great feeling?
We're good. Yeah. I mean, I maybe I do need to give you more context, but like in the beginning, I was like, this is not okay. Like, I'm screwed. This is not like this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
But then by the end of it, because of the system that we had in place for our finances, and we told every single dollar where to go, like we slept at night knowing that we're going to be fine. It's going to be okay.
My favorite time of year, ironically now, is tax time, April 15th. March, actually for corporations is right around now, it's March. And what's interesting is how many people email me saying, I can't believe for the first time ever, I'm not worrying about taxes. Like everything taken care of, all paid. I'm cool and even with the government. People are celebrating that almost as much as they're celebrating their profit distributions. And I think that points to the financial insecurity. When we have bills we can't pay, it is such a weight, that pit in the stomach. So to have that permanently relieved through a system like this, I think is extraordinary for many people. And that's why it's my favorite. I will get April 15th. I just already know it because it happens year after year. That's when the emails just pour in of I've done profit first. I pay my taxes in full. There's actually some left over. I'm going out partying or celebrating or saving. And it's just a great feeling.
Well, as someone that's gone through it and had that same feeling, contrasting feelings where there's no money in the account, wondering how am I going to pay this tax bill, to then now having money in an account specifically designed for it. The peace of mind that we got from the book. I don't remember how much I paid for the book, but it was worth its weight in pure gold. So
love hearing that. Love hearing that.
Yeah. So Mike, let's wrap up there. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming on, for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. It's been absolutely an honor to be with you here today.
Alex, it's been my honor being with you. Thanks for having me.